So back in 2010, I remember being at my friend's house watching the NFL draft, seeing Antonio Brown's name get called. Now, why out of everyone who was drafted did I pay attention to him? Well, because my friend is a Steelers fan and I'm a Bengals fan, so we were paying attention to all the draft picks our teams made. I even remember when they drafted Emmanuel Sanders, being like, who? From where? And then he turned out to be better than most of the players the Bengals drafted that year. But Antonio Brown was a whole different story. A receiver drafted in the 6th round accomplishing what he did during his career doesn't happen often. If you Google best receivers drafted in the 6th round, Antonio Brown's name is always at the top of the list, and then the next best guy last played in 1982. Some could make the argument for Pierre Garçon, but when your name sounds like something you'd call a French guy, then your name might have gotten lost when they were making the list. They're like, Pierre Garçon? I asked for player suggestions, not your Olive Garden order. But Antonio Brown has had a hell of a career that was going pretty well until he got hit in the head by Vontaze Burfict, causing a 15-yard penalty for unnecessary roughness, essentially costing us the game and sending us into a 5-year playoff drought. Who cares, right? Who cares though, right? Who cares if we got sent 5 years of nothing after that? Who cares, right? But before that, he was considered one of the best receivers in the league, leading in both receptions and receiving yards 2 different times, and then touchdowns once. Now, he did lead the league in yards after he got hit in the head, but the next 4 years would be his absolute worst. He starts off by talking shit about Big Ben, saying that he didn't respect his teammates, so they're like, alright, you can go play for another team. That's when the Raiders are like, black guy for sale? Don't mind if we do! But after he went and called the Raiders general manager Mike Mayock a cracker during an argument, he was released not having played a single down of football with them. The Patriots are then like, free black guy for sale? Don't mind if we do! Tom's gonna love this dude! But that lasted all of 1 game before he was released following sexual assault allegations. But as you guys know with the NFL, as long as you're not doing steroids and or betting on games, there will always be a spot for you on one of these 32 teams. Case in point, the Buccaneers signed him the very next year and he won the fucking Super Bowl. Yeah, it took him 10 years and 3 teams to do it, but nonetheless, he did it while having his 2nd worst season stat-wise. But this was Antonio Brown, and regardless if he had the worst stats on the team, his reputation was more than enough to get him a roster spot that next season, which is exactly what happened until most of you know during a Week 17 game versus the Jets, he took off his pads while on the sideline and decided to walk off the field, essentially quitting on his team mid-game. I don't think I've ever seen anyone do this while watching football, but it's no surprise that after this, he never played another down of football with any team ever again, essentially becoming an influencer. Now, I'm not going to go over each and every incident that he's been involved in, but there was that time that he exposed himself to a woman at a pool. He was then arrested for failing to pay child support. He filed for bankruptcy after owing nearly $3 million to 8 different creditors. The old 3x8 special. Hey, I'm at IHOP. Can I get the 3x8 special? That means I owe $3 million. Sure, this is an IHOP. What the fuck are you talking about? But then he just went back to doing what he normally does, tweeting out who the cracker of the day was, and if we're lucky, starting beef with someone who is minding their own business, purposely not trying to engage with him in any kind of conversation, knowing that if they do, he's just going to end up cussing them out and calling them a bunch of slurs like he isn't going to kill himself in the next 3 years because of CTE. But one of the people Antonio Brown has become friends with now that he is done being an athlete is Aiden Ross. They've been on stream together, and from the few clips I've saw, they've been hitting it off pretty well, just about as good as any black guy and Jew could. They hit it off so well actually that Aiden was inviting Antonio Brown to his boxing events that, side note for a second, have got to be some of the worst boxing matches I have ever seen. But being invited to one of Aiden's events might have been a worse decision for him than quitting on his team mid-game. So a month ago on May 17th, during one of Aiden Ross's boxing events, Antonio Brown was involved in an altercation that resulted in a gun going off and Antonio Brown being arrested. Now what's funny is that after he shot the gun, he went on Aiden's stream and was acting like nothing happened.
They want to know if you want to do a quick story time on you though.
Nah, it ain't no story time.
Nah, not at all. Nah. Yeah, Charles is right. Nah, no story time.
Hey, listen.
Yo, there you go.
Dade County, Liberty City.
Yo, that's all you gotta say. That's all you gotta say, AB.
Ain't no talking.
Now you can always tell when people are scared of someone, and these people are terrified of Antonio Brown. For starters, he's obviously cool with Aiden Ross, but no one else is saying anything because they don't even know if he still has the gun on him or not. And they don't want to risk being like, hey, those are some pretty cool pants. Hey, what'd you say to me, gay boy? You want to talk about my pants? You want to take my pants off and start sucking me? But after this, he was arrested for shooting the gun, and we're all like, okay, that sounds like something AB would do. And we all decided to move on and not make a big deal about a black guy shooting a gun. This was the one time where like, if we get mad mad at one of them, we're gonna have to get mad at all of them. And then the guy's like, what do you mean, you people? What do you, shut up, I didn't even say that. But it came out today that Antonio Tavares Brown Sr., colloquially known as AB, was charged with attempted murder after one of the shots he fired was actually directed at someone and grazed them in the neck. It says the warrant, which was signed by Judge Wednesday, listed a charge of attempted murder with a firearm and calls for Brown to post a $10,000 bond and remain under house arrest pending trial. Efforts to reach Brown were unsuccessful. And then you go to this other article and it talks about him being on this bizarre tweet storm where he tweets out this video of him on a bike with the caption, "Love from the Middle East," assuming that's where he is and the reason they weren't able to get a hold of him. Now, of course, when you're halfway around the world, you're going to laugh at the situation you're in back home, but when it's finally time to come back home, you're actually fucked. Being wanted for attempted murder is one thing, but being someone with the resources to leave the country and avoid being arrested is a whole nother story. The police are prepared for him the second he steps foot in the US of A. Swift American justice will rain down upon him like diarrhea from a butt. But I found this other article that talks about the guy who got shot, recanting everything that happened. And basically this guy's name is Black Panther name, you feel me? He said that Antonio Brown was the aggressor and then shot at him, showing where the bullet grazed him. Obviously, I'm going to blur it out, but it looks like if a cat scratched you and then you let the cut bleed for a little bit before you took the picture. Not a big wound, but considering it was made by a gun, it's pretty bad. And basically, he says Antonio Brown claimed he was getting jumped, calling his security out, thus starting the fight, leading to the gun being fired. What makes this story really weird, though, is that this isn't just some random guy who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. These two have a history together. Back in 2022, this guy sued Antonio Brown for $1 million over stolen jewelry and won. However, the verdict was later overturned and the amount was now reduced to just under $200,000. Not as big as $1 million, obviously, but still a lot of money to owe someone. And this guy says as soon as he locked eyes with Antonio, that's when he called his security over to start attacking him, basically trying to make everyone think that he was being attacked so that him using the gun can be seen as self-defense. Even saying he thought he could get a free kill, referencing Florida's notorious stand your ground law that permits deadly force under certain heightened circumstances. He then detailed exactly how the altercation went down, saying, "He ran to get the gun, he shot at me, I think it grazed my neck. We started fighting for the gun. The adrenaline is going crazy, he ran into me, I threw him to the ground, a gun fell, we started scrambling for the gun on the ground. It was at that point the cops arrived." So obviously Antonio Brown saw this guy and was like, now's my chance to get out of owing someone $200. Is he attacking me? Now what's even funnier is that the guy who Antonio shot isn't just some random dude who was there at the wrong place at the wrong time. This guy has pictures with Akon, Floyd Mayweather, so this guy obviously has some connections. And now it looks like he's going to be getting a lot more than $200K. Now obviously, since it looks like Antonio Brown is in Dubai, he is considered on the run. And like I said, he has the money to where he can stay in another country for the rest of his life if he wants. He doesn't have any obligations to America, nobody wants to work with him, do brand deals with him. He is literally free to do whatever he wants, just not in America. Which might sound good until you realize just how great the USA is, baby! Yeah guys, this is basically the end of the line for Antonio's career. There are too many videos and witnesses that saw everything go down to where there is no explaining yourself. The second he comes back here, it's not even a matter of if, it's when is he going to be found guilty of attempted murder. Antonio Brown went from winning the Super Bowl to attempted murder charge in just 5 years. Is that a record? I don't know, it's the end of the video and I'm not gonna look that up. Until tomorrow, peace.